I am very excited to share with you today some super unusual things to me that seem to be completely normal to the Portuguese people. And I want to get your feedback. Now, I know a lot of you out there are American watching this episode, but I am getting a growing audience of people from Portugal. Guys, can you help me understand some of these interesting, nuancy things that have been happening in my world of late? I want to talk about a very difficult subject. When I die and I go to heaven, I have some questions for the Lord about why. Why do we as women, Lord, have to go through puberty and having your period and horrible childbirth? And then just after you raise your children and you say, oh, I have finally, as a woman, been rewarded, then smack, here comes menopause. And that is exactly what has happened to me. You may be wondering how this situation has anything to do with my experience in Portugal, but hang on, it's coming. Okay, so one of my least favorite things about menopause has been I have been always a very thin, lithe woman. I have never really had to work at it. I just have been blessed with good genes and haven't had to deal with weight gain. Well, congratulations. Here comes menopause. And here I am gaining a pound or two and then gaining another pound or two. And now I'm like, okay, this is out of hand. I have no choice, but I have to go to a gym on a regular basis. And I've got to get involved in some dance classes because that's something that I enjoy. And that's something that will help me to stay trim. I go to a bunch of gyms here in Portugal. I found one I liked. It's similar to the gym that I went to back in the United States. And I had been going for about a week and a half, and one of the employees came up to me who speaks English and said, how are you doing? How is your workouts going? Fine. Thank you so much for asking. And she said, your shoes are not good for this gym. And I looked down and I am wearing my black Nike sneakers that I have been wearing to the gym for a year. And I said, these are sneakers, these are gym shoes. She goes, yes, but you came in off the street in them. And I was like, I'm sorry, I don't understand what that means. What do you mean? I'm wearing sneakers. Sneakers are for the gym, sneakers for outside. She goes, no. She said, you have to have special designated sneakers only for the gym, only to use inside. And then you can have another pair of sneakers for whatever other purposes you want on the outside. This blew my mind because I have never thought of that before. And she said it's unsanitary. And I just thought that is the craziest thing I've ever heard. But I brought it up to a Portuguese friend of mine, Alex. I said, what's the deal with the shoes? She said, we have cobblestone streets, we have dusty roads. Our shoes get dirtier faster than perhaps yours do in the United States. And therefore, it is considerate of the other gym members to wear only gym sneakers that are designated for indoor use. Couldn't believe this. And I was just really embarrassed because I felt like maybe I looked inconsiderate. And then I had this high level emergency that I had to go buy different sneakers because the sneakers that I have, I wear for indoor and outdoor use. So then I started to notice other layers of the sneaker thing in the gym. In the locker room, for example, there are women's sneakers that are lined up and other shoes. And I looked down and I realized these are their outdoor sneakers. these are the ones that they're not supposed to wear. And I started looking in the gym and I'm like, wow, everybody looks like they're in a gym sneaker commercial. It dawned on me like the lights went on, oh, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is a gym culture thing that I never saw coming. Weird, so weird. Okay, so some of you know that I have a hearing challenge. Yeah, it's a real thing, not a joke. And I had to go for a specialized hearing test at the local medical facility. I walk into the clinic and I'm used to American style clinics. You stand in line if there is one, they check you in with either a tablet or at the desk, and then you go and sit and wait. Well, this is like this complicated dance of a medical clinic where first you take a ticket out of a little machine and you have the ticket number, and then you go sit in an alcove area with a big screen TV, and you wait for the number that's on your ticket to show up on the screen. And with every number that changes, there's a musical cue that goes ding.
Balcão 7 B4 7 B5.
So if you're sitting there for like 20 minutes, you hear diddle-ling, announcing the next person with the next ticket. So I get up there, I explained who I was, I gave them my information, I said I'm here for the specialized hearing test. They said, great. And then they said, go to the next waiting room. So I'm like, okay, where's the next waiting room? Follow the signs. So I look at the sign, I look up, and I see the bathroom sign, I see other waiting room signs, and then I see bar. Bar. In the medical clinic, there's a bar. I love a good drink now and then, but I cannot think of a serious reason why I would need to have a drink in a medical clinic. Like, why would I need that? Or is it just a coffee bar? I didn't experience it, so I don't know. I'm looking for this other mysterious waiting room. So I get to this other alcove area and I have the ticket in my hand and I'm looking up at the screen. And finally they call my number and then I go in and I go to see the specialist and I get the hearing test. But I think that what surprised me the most was, well, number one, the bar, but also the way that they do the medical operations. Like, as a business coach, this fascinates me because I want to know why we do what we do and the internal workings of how things work. Well, it turns out that at this medical clinic, there are 4 waiting rooms. And depending upon which area you are going to for which specialty, you wait in a different waiting room. Interesting. I have been in many waiting rooms here in Portugal for dentists and eye doctors and general doctors, but never for a hearing specialist. So I walk into the waiting room and I had something happen that has never happened in any other waiting room here in Portugal. And that is, everyone looked at me and said, "Bom dia." So simple, right? So simple. Everyone said, "Good morning." And I was shocked and I said, "Oh, bom dia, bom dia, bom dia." I realized that everyone in the room was at least over 65 years old. Okay. Now, here's why this is interesting to me. Much like in the United States, where people have their cell phones, they're using them all the time, even in public, I noticed for the first time, the people in the waiting room were actually just talking to each other. They didn't know each other, but they were talking to each other. Some of them a little loud because of hearing loss, but still, it was interesting that everyone acknowledged every single person who came in or out of the specialist office were greeted with a good morning. Now, maybe to you that doesn't sound like a big deal, but I think it speaks to how our culture has evolved as humans in modern society today, both Portugal and the United States, and really all across the world. We have become isolated even in a public setting. So I walked into the hearing specialist's office and he was a lovely gentleman in his 40s, spoke beautiful English. And I mentioned it to him. I said, you know, I was really impressed with the fact that almost all your patients were greeting each other and talking with each other in the waiting room. He said, yes. He said, I tend to have older patients who have hearing loss. And he said, this is the last generation that is doing this. And some of them will not even enter into his office without asking permission at the door. I mean, that's fascinating to me, that behavior around respect and around respect for space and respect for boundaries. For me, it kind of opened up more layers like an onion. It made me just really curious about how our world is changing. And at my age, I'm kind of living between two major groups of people, two major generations. We had some villagers over for dinner one night, and same thing happened with the whole boundaries concept. And I had like an antipasta. As an Italian American, we do like, you might call it a charcuterie to start before the meal, and some wine and some soft drinks. And it's all laid out when they arrive. They would not touch it even after I gave permission. Please help yourself, please. Like, here's a plate. But they just kind of watched the food, looked at me. I'm still not quite sure what I did wrong. And maybe it's because charcuterie is not done before the meal. I don't know. If you know the answer to this, please let me know. But it was just very interesting, the behaviors around entertaining at your own house. Oh yeah, I made a major faux pas. I was doing an Italian American meal, right? I like to do it in stages. So I'll do the salad course first, or the soup course, depending upon the weather. And then I'll do the pasta, and then I'll do the meat and the vegetable, and then I do the dessert at the end. And it's really designed to help you to linger, enjoy your meal, talk with the person next to you, etc. I put the first course on the table and nobody picked up the bowl of the salad. No one picked up the bread. And I'm like, oh, please help yourself. And they thanked me, but there was no first move to pick up the salad in the big bowl and take what you want. And multiple times I was like, please, I got all these other courses on the stove. I'm like, please eat the salad. I mean, I'm going to have a collision of courses going on here in a minute. And so finally, one of the best English speakers of the group said, do you want us to serve ourselves? And I was like, serve yourself? What does this mean? Of course I want you to serve yourself. This is a meal. You can serve yourself. You pick up the bowl, you take the salad with the tongs, you pass it to the next guy. This was not a thing. So when you're invited to somebody's house, it's the job of the hostess to serve each person at the table, and then they eat whatever you give them. That blew my mind, because I was like, I even said something. I'm like, well, how would I make all the courses and serve all the people? And they were just like, that's what we do. And I was like, wow, like it was a very interesting cultural experience that I did not see coming. Okay, here's another one. Almost everybody who I've experienced here in Central Portugal under the age of 30 years old tends to speak very good English. But there's a little bit of a confidence complex where people don't want to say that. As an American, I unfortunately, growing up, only knew one language. You could take Spanish for a couple years, French for a couple years, but those were the two options in my school. And none of it was serious, because America is such a huge country, and where I lived, there really wasn't a need for a second language. Now that I think of it, that's ironic, because I lived in what was called Little Chinatown and Little India. I grew up in Edison, New Jersey, home of the light bulb, I might say. And Thomas Edison actually created one of the first light bulbs like 5 minutes from where I grew up. Ask me if I've ever been to the museum, though. Nope, never went to the museum. It's funny how when you live next door to something historic, sometimes you don't care. It's always been there. It'll always be there for you if you ever want to visit. But isn't that crazy? Wow. Anyway, I never took languages seriously. Coming here, I am very impressed by the Portuguese. I'm finding that many Portuguese speak excellent English, and many people speak other languages as well, such as French or Spanish, since Spain is next door. It's always interesting to me when I come across somebody and I need to have more than a basic Portuguese conversation. And what I usually say is, excuse me, can you speak English to me, please? Almost every time they'll look at me and go, a little, nothing else, just a little. And then they launch into perfect English, better than mine. I always say to the person, your English is so good. Why do you say you only speak a little? Oh, well, I'm not very good. I'm not. Portuguese people who speak English, you're killing it. You're doing a great job. Have some confidence in your second language because you're really, really good at it. You put us as Americans who only speak one language to shame. Now that I'm an adult, I have learned 2 other languages, albeit not perfectly. I speak Italian badly since I lived in Italy getting my dual citizenship. And surprisingly, I speak some Haitian Creole, which almost has had no influence on any other place I've ever been in the world other than Haiti. Sac passe, amis, moi, como ye? Moi papi, ma messi. I want to encourage you guys, you Portuguese people who are awesome, who speak all these languages, don't be embarrassed. We should be the ones embarrassed. We're the ones who don't speak great Portuguese. I do have to say, it is the hardest language I've ever come across. So what do you guys think of these cultural experiences? Am I missing anything? Is there something that you can enlighten me with about the reason why some of these things happen? I'm really curious, so please leave it in the comments section below. And thank you so much for watching, guys. See you next week.